and plastics too. A lot of times we're throwing a pink and a white. Now, when you're looking for these white bass, we're looking at the side imaging here, and what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a good... We are hooked up. Hey everyone, Troy Peterson, Mr. Bluegill, and we are in the white bass capital of the world on the Wolf River in Fremont, Wisconsin. And today we are fishing white bass. And we got first guy here. This happens to be, I think, a little male. And you always got to plan around Mother's Day or when the lilacs bloom. And that is when people from all over the Midwest come to the Wolf River to catch these things. They are so prolific. There's so many of them. The DNR has never put a regulation on them. They're considered a rough fish. So you can catch and keep as many as you'd like. And it's a great time to come and fill the freezers, but more importantly, and have a lot of fun. There we go. Hooked up. So one of these, almost felt like I had a double on there and it came off. One of the big things that when you're fishing a rig like this, we've got a really long lead, as you can see. Essentially, what I'm doing is tying, a glorified sabiki rig that we use down south for casting multiple baits to catch bait. It's something that, I was down there, I was like, man, this is gonna work great for white bass. So that's really what I'm tying up. But when you're casting these things, you kind of got to be mindful of the sinker into where you're casting. So I'm typically running either a 3/8 ounce to a 3/4 ounce. And the biggest thing is when we're pumping these baits back and forth, that you let that sinker hit the bottom each time before you snap it down. And then when you snap it, make sure you're reeling up. You're always keeping your line tight because you never know when these fish are going to eat. But most of the time when these fish hit is going to be when you snap it forward, that sinker hits. And as soon as that sinker hits, those flies kind of poof open, and that's when they're going to get nailed. The nice thing about white bass is they're a schooling fish, and when you find the school of them, using your side imaging or, if you have a Mega Live unit or whatnot, when you find a school of them, you're going to cast into those schools and you're going to get bit. I mean, there's just no other way around it. This one hit on the bottom fly, and that is on a pink lemonade. So some of my staple colors that really are on my lines pretty much at all times, I'll put this guy in here real quick, are going to be a lot of pinks. Pink and white, pink and chartreuse, like a pink lemonade, and then I'll always have one fly that'll be a dark color, like a black and orange or maybe a purple and red. But these three colors right here are going to be pretty much my staples when it comes time to chasing these things. Even when it comes time to spinners or fishing plastics too, a lot of times I'm throwing a pink and a white. Now, when you're looking for these white bass, we're looking at the side imaging here, and what I'm seeing is I'm seeing a good sandbar with weeds that start and go right up to the shoreline. And that's where they're spawning. Any place we can find a good shallow sand flat with weeds and brush or timber that's laying down on the water, that's where they're going to be when the sun is out. Early on in the morning and on the way up, when these fish are migrating up, they're going to be out over the deeper water, over the center parts of the river. And if you know where the clam beds are, those are always great places to fish, not only the white bass, but the walleyes as well. Oofta. I honestly think this is probably the most fun a guy can have standing up. Oh, moly, this guy's mad. Oh, look at that. We got a double. There we go. Now we're missing the third one, but it happens quite often that you get that third one. This just happens to be two, but I'm telling you what, like I said, this is about as most fun you can have standing up. It doesn't get any better than this. Coming to Fremont, Wisconsin, fishing the Wolf River, catching these white bass, multiples at a time, no live bait. Very, very fun experience. If you've never tried it, I strongly suggest you go out to the Wolf River in May and try this white bass fishing. Double the pleasure, double the fun. All right, now we get to go clean these things. At the end of every good day of fishing, we've got some good cleaning to do. And I've got here in my hand, this is the 7-inch Fish Crafter knife from Benchmade. This thing has got some amazing steel. Whatever they're using, this thing holds an edge like no other. One thing with cleaning white bass is when we're cutting through these rib cages, it really taxes a knife. And so far, I am super impressed. It's almost as easy as cleaning with an electric flay knife, which is what we usually use on these white bass. So when we're cleaning these white bass, you're seeing here that we're cutting above the lateral line. And above the lateral line here, you can see the dark red meat. That's what makes these fish taste horrible. You want to get rid of all the red meat. And truthfully, below that, you've got the rib cage and a little bit of belly meat back here, but that's where all your fatty tissue is. It really isn't a very good piece of meat to eat. So what we do is just take those back straps off, and those things they make excellent fish tacos, or you can fry them up like any other fish. So when the lilacs start blooming, make sure you get up to Fremont, Wisconsin on the Wolf River and get some of these white bass. And it's always a good idea to have one of these Benchmade knives with you. It's going to make easy work for all those fish you're going to catch. I'm Troy Peterson, Mr. Bluegill, Midwest Outdoors. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more Midwest Outdoors content.
All right. How is everybody doing tonight? Let's see. We got some questions coming in. It is, probably one of my most favorite months to fish. I get excited, every day I go out. If you don't get excited when you head out fishing, it's probably not your deal. But May is really a special time. Getting into the heat of pretty much everything. The white bass are running, the walleyes are biting like crazy. The bluegills and the crappies are really starting to get going. And for the bass guys, bass as well. The smallies up in Sturgeon Bay and Door County. There's just so many opportunities we have right out our back doors here in Wisconsin that I really don't know, where else you could go in the country to have the opportunities we have, right here in our great state. So take advantage of it, get excited, get the kids out, and this white bass deal, if you've never done it, it's very simple fishing. There's granted, we're using the electronics to find them. And once these fish start getting up into the shallows to spawn, there's no need for electronics or anything. A bobber, a sinker, and a minnow. About as easy as it comes. And the fish fight like mad. They bite hard, and they're great to eat. So everything about it, man. Mr. Bluegill, Mr. Walleye, Mr. White Bass, depends on the season. Yes, sir. Mr. Multi-Species. I've always kind of touted my hat as being a multi-species guy, and I love all types of fishing. The only thing I don't do is fish largemouth a whole lot. I always say we call them ditch pickles, and really if we had a good small or a big largemouth bite across the street, I don't even know if I'd walk across the street to catch them. They don't do anything for me. Maybe some top water action, but we catch them while we're walleye fishing, and vice versa, right? The bass guys catch walleyes while they're bass fishing. Smallmouth, on the other hand, I like targeting those things. There's more on the lines of a walleye, but just going and punching, weeds and throwing up to docks and making 1,000 casts every 20 minutes, that's not my game. But hey, more power to the bass guys. I think if I'd have to go back and start fishing all over again and looking at where the money is and the tournaments and stuff like that, the guys that are doing bass, they're the ones who are making it. So kudos to them. And like I say, if I could do it over again, that's probably what I would do. But I'm still going to stick to my multi-species. I love the panfish, I love the walleyes, and obviously these white bass are some of my most favorite fish to catch, and favorite time of the year. So that being said, how is everybody doing? I know we've had some crazy stuff happen on the river and on our system here over the last week, and it's just time to get back to fishing, boys. Leave the drama for the coffee shops, and we'll just get back to fishing. And everybody has a bad day. I get it, and just move on. That's all we can do. It's done, it's over with, and that's the last I'm going to say about that. So, moving on to fishing. So earlier this week, I went up and did the the whole system. I was from north of Fremont all the way down to Poygan, all around on Poygan, down through Winneconne, up the river in Eureka, down through Amaro, and then all the way down to the mouth of the river in Oshkosh, out onto Winnebago. And I can tell you this much: it is nothing like it was last year. For walleye fishing and white bass fishing, it seems to be this has been a very quick year for not only the walleyes. I mean, those walleyes came up and left and gone. It was one of the fastest runs I can ever remember, last year. But here again, guys, you got to remember last year we were on the boats in February. So we were able to get all those fish as they were heading upriver and intercepting them. And that's, I think, why the bite was so much better last year. This year was more of a typical year. The ice went out, fairly normal. And we had, a good couple of weeks of up run. They did their spawning, and we had, good couple of weeks of the down run. So we had, pretty much the month of April was our walleye month. I know in years past, if we can get on the river early March, we'll have phenomenal fishing all the way through March and the first part of April. And then typically around my birthday, which is the 21st, is when things are kind of winding up on the spawn and they're heading back. And that was pretty typical. What's funny to me this year is the fish didn't really stop in the upper lakes like they normally do. I mean, there's some fish up in Poygan and Butamore, right? I mean, there always is. But typically it seems like when a run, a standard run or a normal run, those fish come out in the Poygan and they'll hang around in the Poygan for, 2-3 weeks in pretty large numbers. And then as, starts to warm up and the cane beds and stuff start to fire towards the end of May and early June, and then, they eventually get back out into Winnebago. But I can, from what I've been seeing and being out there, I think a lot of those fish bypassed the upper lakes this year and went straight to Winnebago. And I'm sure a lot of fish spawned out in Winnebago this year, just absolute prime conditions for everything. The water was a little bit lower, in the river than what has been in the past, but it all worked itself out. Water came up at the right time, water temperatures got right, and we didn't have any of those really big major snowfalls to cool everything down. I think there's going to be a good hatch, and everything's set up just perfect as far as the spawn goes for the walleyes. So now the white bass, typically you kind of get that mix, right, where the walleyes are coming down and the white bass are going up, and didn't see that much at all. I mean, we're getting some white bass now up in Fremont, up in the area, but I'd say between yesterday and today is when the major push, really started to come in. There were a lot of fish out in the main lake, both Bago and Poygan, and some are on Butamore too. Those big schools are migrating north and getting into the river. So we always say the lilacs, guys, that is never wrong. Mother's Day, the lilacs, it is cookie cutter every single year. And I look at some of the lilac trees and there's just, a lot of the leaves are turning green and the flowers are just starting to bud. We're going to have 80s this weekend and, high 70s, 80s next week. It's going to be a quick run. I don't think we're going to have a real long season like we did last year. The water's warming up super fast. The fish I got yesterday had, pretty soft eggs already. So Once they get up into the river and find their spawning spots, I think it's going to be over pretty quick. The males were just oozing with milk, so they're ready, and I think it's going to be a quick season. So if you have something scheduled, later on in May, you might want to think about moving it up a little bit, and uh, try and take advantage of it, because I honestly think it's going to be a quick season. As far as where they've been the last few days, down by the mouth of Oshkosh, all those big females coming up into the river, along the, I guess would be the north side, from the railroad trestle down, and the railroad trestle up all the way past the amphitheater. That whole stretch, that whole north side of the river, has been, just loaded with fish. And don't be afraid to get underneath the docks. Underneath the bridges, and cast little twister tails, or if you got a heavier spinner that'll sink down, get it down just a little bit. That's been working really good. Otherwise, right through the middle of the river, casting fly rigs, or just pulling flies, and you're going to get the mix of walleyes and white bass, in Oshkosh right now. Everything's doing really well down there. As you go up further from Amro all the way up to Eureka, I never seen a fish. I went all the way up to the dam, motored around the dam a little bit, watched with live scope in some bushes and some of the deeper holes. There were a few catfish hanging around, but didn't see hardly anything for what I would consider, white bass or walleye marks. A lot of rough fish up by the dam, some carp and gar, and suckers and stuff like that, but nothing that really looked too fishy for me. And then from there, just moving up, from the gun club, all the way up through town into Clark's Bay, that whole area. There's just pods of fish kind of scattered everywhere, and walleyes, white bass mixed in. And then the closer you get up towards the mouth of the river, especially right by the canes there, kind of over by the duck end, there were a lot of white bass in there. And the cutoff, or the cut going through Boom Bay, and then down by the mouth, we've been seeing some pretty good pods. We had one good pod that moved all the way up past Boom Island and going into Orohula, around the bend and up towards Party Doll. There, being when they're still heading up, fish them in the middle of the river, but I do know some guys today that started casting into some shallow, that 3 to 5 foot, with slip bobbers or just bobbers and minnows, and they were getting a lot of fish in the shallows by late afternoon today. Problem is, it was so windy, that northeast wind, it's kind of hard to fish that way. But the guys that were finding, some warmer pockets out of the wind, did really well. So lots of opportunities there. Once you get up a little bit further north, up into town, Fremont area, didn't see much of anything. I know some guys are catching one here, one there, but I was looking for pods of fish, and every spot that would normally hold, I'd see maybe a walleye or two, but no big schools of white bass anywhere. That will change by tomorrow. This is going to happen fast. We get rid of these northeast winds. Now it's going to start warming up each day again. And by this weekend, I have a feeling there's going to be fish all the way up into town, Red Banks area. And, guys should probably start trying into the trees. I think it's going to warm up, fast enough up there with these warm, really warm temps. And bright sunshine. Those shallow areas up in the trees are going to warm up fast. And there again, it's let's see. I'm going to go enjoy this beautiful sunset. Tie lines. I'll see you next week. Hey, White. Have a good night. Thanks for tuning in. So the ways to fish them right now. Still looking, right away in the morning while it's a little bit cooler, before the sun comes out. I'd be targeting the, centers of the rivers, where you got that 12 to 14 feet of water, clam beds. That's really good spots. And then look for those indentations. Like when you're going up these straightaways, you'll get that washboard effect, and all those little crevices. There should be just piles of fish lined up on those. And when you see that, go off to the edge, spot lock, or throw out an anchor, and then cast your fly rig up current and just start, working it back and letting it slide all the way through. And you're going to find that one sweet spot that, is just the right angle, and you're going to get bit, pretty much every time you do that. And then just repeat. That's what's awesome about casting flies versus pulling them, is you can, get out of the way, anchor up, and just keep casting. And you can, cast two flies, 3 flies, whatever your comfort level is. And I know some of the guys too like to cast, a hair jig and a fly, versus, throwing those 3 ways. So it's a little bit easier. You just kind of got to watch where the fish are at. If you're, running short leads, or you've seen a lot of fish tight to the bottom, then I'm going to run a short lead, a real heavy sinker, and try and keep those flies as tight to the bottom as I can. If you're driving over the tops of some of these, straight shots on the river, and you're seeing fish, 2-3 feet up off the bottom, then I'm going to, then you can probably get away with throwing just a hair jig and another, fly up above, or, just casting, some smaller sinkers. But you really gotta, every day is different. And then obviously once they get up into the shallows, slip bobbers, or throwing, spinners or Cleos, small little plastics, any small little bait, to throw up their replicated minnow, and you're going to get bit. Even like blade baits, small blade baits, or small rip and wraps, anything that's going to resemble a minnow, you're going to get hit. Now, you're going to get those days like tonight. We got a cold front coming in tonight and tomorrow. I think it's supposed to be, possibly 30 degrees tomorrow. So that'll help. That'll help cool things down and slow it down a little bit, I guess. But that 80 degrees on Saturday, and that'll get it right back to where it needs to be. But when let's see what we were talking about. We were talking about help me out, guys. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was reading and lost my train of thought. Fly rigs. I don't know. Anyway, so we'll talk about, kind of fly rigs here, colors. The water is actually pretty clear right now, for, all things considered, with the rain and whatnot that we've had. It's a pretty good color. And the one thing that I probably do a little bit more different than a lot of the guys I see with flies. Let me pull out a couple here, and I'll show you the difference. Okay, probably not a real good representation, but you'll see. So when I'm tying my own flies, just anything in general, white bass are attracted to flashy things. Everybody pretty much knows that. So I'm trying to make my flies as flashy as possible. Now, that being said, I won't use, all Flashabou, or you make them all shiny. I've tried it. It does not seem to work as much. You need some substance, some body there, and then, the Flashabou in the middle. So some of the Flashabou, you can see kind of got that, maybe a little bit of sparkly tinsel. Now, when you look at the difference, just in the little bit of light, you can see how much more flash that has. The purples, and then this like pink iridescent. That pink iridescent really shows up good underwater. And we got some red too. That's my firefly. So colors, when the water's clear like this, I'm a big purple pink guy. That right there catches more fish than probably any other bait I have in my boat. whether it be walleyes or white bass, everything that's in the river. I have a ton of this color, and this one here definitely takes the cake as far as being the best for me. After that, I really like a pink and a white. The pink and white crappie kind of colors, what most guys would use for crappies. The walleyes, the white bass, especially the white bass, really love the pink and white. And then after that, if we got a really, clear day and we don't need that extra flash, stick to your normal dark colors. Purple and maybe a little bit of yellow or chartreuse works good. And then this is a staple for me for the white bass is my Firefly. Red tinsel, orange and yellow hair. The white bass just absolutely go crazy over that one. So then what I'll do when I have my fly rigs tied, if I'm running 2 rigs or 3, I will alternate my colors to just give it that extra contrast. And then that way there, you can check and see are darker ones working, or you getting bit up towards the top, or you getting bit towards the back. Kind of, figure all that kind of stuff out, and then replicate it, and go to catching. And when we start to see fish up into the shallow water, I know a lot of people, love casting, one bait at a time, or little twister tails or spinners, because they hit them so darn hard. Spinners is one of my favorite things to do just because of how hard they hit. They will rip the rod out of your hand. And you'll get some days too, when you find those big pods, if you got a big enough treble hook on the back of your spinner. I've done it a few times now where you actually catch 2 fish on the one trailing treble hook, because they go up and they both hit it so hard. And same thing with little Cleos. I've caught 2 fish at a time on some little Cleos casting as well. But anyway, going back to, fish and flies. When these fish get up into the shallow water, don't be afraid to throw fly rigs up there too. I'll put on, maybe like a 1/4 ounce bell sinker or 3/8, size it down a little bit, and just enough to keep it down there, and then just rip it through. The nice thing is when you find them up in the shallows like that, you can typically get your doubles and triples pretty easy because you can feel everything. So when you're ripping it through and you feel that first one hit, just try and give it a couple little extra tugs to get those flies to flash, and bam, you'll feel the second and the third ones hit if you cast your rig. So I always, you get the doubles out of the way, and then once that gets boring, then you try and go for the triples. And if you find those pods, you can usually get all 3 to bite. Now, doesn't mean all 3 will get to the boat, because every once in a while you get them twisting and zigzagging and you lose 1 or 2, but it's still fun to try. And when you're doing that, you can really fill up your live wells pretty quick. Let's see. Line preference. So you can use, I just happen to have some 10-pound here. If I'm walleye fishing, I'm using like a 10-pound InvizX leader. If I'm strictly white bass fishing and casting up into some brush and stuff like that, then I kind of go up in size, 15-pound InvizX, and then you don't have to really worry about breaking off. Even with the fine teeth that the white bass have, you got to double check your lines every once in a while, but for the most part, you really can fish that leader all day long and not have to worry about anything. I've fished with 10-pound, and it seems like, if we're up throwing into the brush or on some rocky shorelines or something like that, or working the clam beds, I'll wear out some 10 pounds, because we're just constantly just rip. And that's why I go up to a 15-pound. But if the fish are finicky, or like I said, if you're just strictly walleye fishing, then I'll size it down a little bit to 10, just because you get a little bit more action, a little bit more motion. But white bass, they don't care. You don't have to worry about that. And then as far as what we're doing, how I tie my leaders, we'll tie one up here and kind of show you. I always do just 2 arm lengths We'll bite that off. So I'm going to be working with about a 3 to 4 foot area where the flies will be. And so what I'm going to do here is we're going to put the first fly on, and I always hold the hook to my right and run the line through the eyelet. Shoot, we got some glue in the eyelet here. Who else is having problems with their vision at 40, your mid 40s? It's starting to get a little annoying. I'm going to have to start carrying some reader glasses in my boat. I always laughed at all my buddies that were getting older and complaining, and now it's happening to me, and it is what it is. There we go. Now we're cleaned up. Bob, how are you doing tonight, boss? I should try some of your root beer flies for these things. All right, so we're gonna get this in. All right, and we're gonna slide this up. Let's see, about an arm's length. Okay, that's about the distance I'm gonna work with. So now that we have our fly in there, what we're gonna do, it's called a loop knot. So we're gonna make a loop, just let that dangle there, take our line and just kind of wrap it inside itself. We'll do this like 5 or 6 times. Okay. And now where we wrapped it around itself, we're just going to bring the hook or the other side of that loop up through, pull it out, give it a little bit of lubrication. And once you pull it tight, there we go. So there's our first fly. Now what we're going to go do is we'll split the difference. We'll go in the middle, right about there. And so I got a pink and a white one on the front. I'm going to put a firefly in the middle. All right, right about there. So we'll just tie overhand. I don't want to call it a knot. So we're going to pinch that, and we're going to take the line, and we're going to wrap it inside itself. Bring it up through. Okay, so now we've got pink and white. We got the firefly, and then on the back, we will just tie our purple and pink. Okay, back up here so you guys can see. All right, so that's our rig. Fly length is almost an arm's length, and then from here, depending on how good of a caster you are or how long of a rod you have, you can trim this down, I would probably pinch it off kind of about the same distances in between each fly, and that's where the three-way would go. And then just cast that thing out and just start ripping. People are saying, I carry my readers everywhere. I used to be that cool guy that I had sunglasses hanging from my shirt. Now it's readers. See, Bob, you can get some of these fishing sunglasses that have bifocals on them. But, I've tried those, and you're constantly moving your head up and down, and just gives me a headache. I'm going to go as long as I can. And I might get one of those like clamp-on magnifying glasses that I'll just clamp to the pole or clamp to something in my boat. That way there I can just go and, use a magnifying glass. And Bob's going to chase the flatheads this weekend. That sounds like fun too. Those fish are a blast to catch. So that is my fly rig. That's how I tie everything. Now, if you're only, like I say, if you're not comfortable or you're kind of fishing with newbies and you don't want to get hooked in the side of the head, or, worried about stuff getting all tangled up, then just go down to, a 2-fly rig. And, fishing 2 flies like this, that's pretty easy. I haven't really had anybody that can't cast 2. But if you have, some rookies that are just kind of learning the game and want to, experiment just casting the flies, then just tie 1 on. Or, rather than doing the 3-way system, use put a heavier hair jig, and then, a fly up above. Multiple different ways you can do it. But go out, have fun, explore it, and it's so much fun when you start getting 2 and 3 fish on at a time, fighting them in that current. It definitely wear you out. It'll also wear your gear out too. My anti-reverse and my reels are getting pretty weak. So, any questions from anybody here on the fly rigs at all? Everybody's quiet tonight. Everybody was yapping all week long, and now it seems like once we get to fishing, everybody's quiet. All right. Some of the questions I get, do you put minnows on the flies? You don't need any live bait when you're fishing flies. If you can't get them with bare flies this time of the year, they're just probably not going to eat. But if you guys want to put minnows on there, they'll eat minnows too. It just there's really no reason for it. Let's see, we got some messages coming in here. So, pretty simple. Alternate your colors. Try and put some dark and some bright ones on, and see what's working that day. And you'll be surprised, sometimes that, if everybody's using, bright colors and not getting anything, and then you throw some dark ones on or just some different colors, and, bam, the fish start going crazy again. So always experiment. And some of my favorite plastics, some of the Z-Man stuff, the nice thing with the Z-Man stuff for white bass is, unlike a lot of the other plastics, you get bit sometimes 2-3 fish and your plastics are ripped off, junk. These Z-Man ones, I fish a lot of the micro finesse stuff for the white bass, and drop a super glue on a 1/8 ounce tungsten, small little tungsten jig, cast that thing up. I guarantee you I can catch 60-70 fish on that one bait, if not more. That's, if you've never played around with that Elastec stuff, it's pretty awesome, especially with these white bass. And then, all kinds of different spinners. Once the spinner bite gets going, that's a lot of fun. And slip bobbers, once they get up tight to the docks or up in the trees and they're spawning, casting slip bobbers on ultralight tackle is a hoot. And I hope by the weekend here, my husband and wife that come and fish with me every year are coming up on Sunday. And last year we just annihilated them. They got here at the perfect time, and it was a lot of fun. Everything was pretty much on ultralight tackle. So that's what I'm hoping, that these fish set up nice and we can have fun. But regardless, catching 2 and 3 at a time on fly rigs is still a lot of fun too. I'm gonna try and get out. I'm not gonna try. We'll be out tomorrow. But if I get into a good bite and I find a good spot that I can show you guys how to work the flies, and maybe some of the other plastics and baits that we're using, we'll go live in the boat tomorrow. So stay tuned. Check back. During the I don't know, probably mid to late morning, midday. We'll see if we can't go live and show you guys what's happening. Other than that, I've got openings yet. There's a couple weekend days available through May, and then the weekdays, obviously. Towards the end of May, I think is pretty full, but at least right now, these next week and a half, 2 weeks, got some openings if you guys want to try and get out. Half days, full days, mornings, afternoons. Tell me I'm pretty flexible, easy to work with. And then June 2nd, that Monday, I will be going in for my back surgery. So I will be out, a little bit with that, and just kind of resting up, and hopefully come out of that ready to go and not have to go through the pain that we've been going through here the last few years, but the last 6 months, for the most part, has been just terrible. Can't even begin to explain sometimes how much pain I have. And, if you've never had back pain, you don't ever want it. And the guys that have had it, tell you, if you've never had it, it's some days just unbearable. Anyway, that's all I really got for you guys. Is if you guys are looking to do the minnow thing, just the fatheads are great. You don't have to worry, waste the money on shiners. For the most part, these fish are full of the little trout perch, and I actually had a fish that had some frogs in it too, which I found kind of crazy. I've never had a white bass with a frog. Walleyes, but I've never had a white bass with a frog in it. Buy a bunch of them. Don't go out. The one thing you don't ever want to do when you go out fishing is run out of bait. So if you are, going and getting minnows wherever, make sure you got plenty, and just keep an aerator going, or make these Flow-Tro buckets work great in the springtime. That you can throw in a live well or in a 5-gallon bucket when you're not when you're moving, and then they just kind of go over the side, and keep your minnows fresh. I got the flat boxes, the aerated buckets with the cooling pad that attaches right onto the inside, kind of like a cooler, and I really love those boxes. I can keep baits 3 weeks without really doing much of anything. About that 3 week, there's enough of a scum line that I take everything apart, clean it all up. But my aerators are running 24/7 this time of the year, and with how expensive live bait is and how much we go through, I should probably just have the bait guy come and dump a whole bunch right here in the pond, and then just keep some nets or some traps or something like that out and catch my own, because this time of the year we go through a lot of minnows. Anyway, you guys have a good weekend. Let's see. Yeah, Kelly, I get no live bait. I don't fish with live bait, but sometimes my guys want to use slip bobbers, and it really helps some days. Bobby, yeah, I've casted Salmos for the white bass, small crankbaits, and it's does well. Let's see. Rod length and action. So Tennessee, the rod length that I use, I got a 7'3" medium or medium light with an extra fast tip, and I'm running a 2500 series Shimano, the Vanfords, and then I've got 10-pound Seagar Smackdown that goes to my 3-way, and then 15-pound Invisex to my bell sinker. And I know a lot of people like throwing pencil sinkers. I don't, because I think they have a little bit more resistance. And with a bell sinker, the other thing I find is that it doesn't get like twisted or wrapped up on my line as much as what the pencil sinkers do. A lot of people use the pencil sinkers. I'm a bell sinker guy. And then, a 3/4 ounce bell sinker, it's just a small little ball. I think it stays closer to the bottom, or it can keep it closer to the bottom, and just my preference. But again, when you're looking at, weights and where you want to keep your flies, or, you can try, if you see them tight to the bottom on your side imaging or on your graph, then I'm running like maybe an 8 to 10 inch lead. If I'm seeing a bunch up high, I'll go as much as like an 18 to 20 inch lead. And then on my fly rigs, my personal ones, I'll cast a 5 to 6 foot lead. For clients that aren't, as efficient as I guess as what we are when we're casting, and I don't want to have to worry about them, getting into a bunch of mess. I'll shorten them up to like a 3, maybe a 4 foot lead. 4 foot's pretty easy to cast yet. Again, depends on how many guys I have in the boat too. But 4 foot lead, you can get 3 flies on that, no problem, and get that chance at catching some doubles and triples. Hey Bob, thanks man. Have a good night. Let's see. Okay, I just want to make sure. So we got varied length on both your lead line with your flies on it. The longer the better, as long as you can cast them. If we're just dropping lines over the side of the boat and going upstream or cross current and pulling flies, I'll pull as long as a 7 or an 8 foot fly lead and really space out those flies. And then you get those real long whips, where those baits are moving all over the place. Just a lot more action and, better. But that's if we're pulling. You're not casting an 8 foot lead. That's too much for me even. I would try it, but it's just a little too long. Todd, when is the next fish fry? I'm waiting for an invite from you. Or you got to come up here and catch these things, but you're cleaning them. I'm going to set my mark this year at 400. After 400, I'm done. We got a lot of fish fries to do this summer, and then when we do all the sampling for all the catch and cook stuff, we cook up a lot of white bass. Tell everybody it's walleye, but cook up a lot of white bass, and nobody knows no different. It's kind of fun to play with guys like that. Speaking of catch and cook, if any of your bait dealers or bait shops that you visit often don't have it, tell them they can get it from one of their distributors, and you got to try it. Now they've got some new flavors. They've got the beer batter and the lemon pepper, and now they've got a couple new spices that are coming out. There's a habanero mango, and I know it's in transit to my house right now. I cannot wait to get it and try it. I think that's going to be incredible on fish. So definitely going to want to check that out as we get going. Jade must have some habanero mango. Did you get yours already, Jade? I cannot wait to try it. But, regardless, the crunchy, the flame, they call it spicy. Well, you got to remember, guys, if you like chipotle, which I don't think is a spice, but to Canadians, that's like, the devil, the devil sauce. The Canadians are pretty weak. And the spice, it's good to mix like a bag of spice and a bag of crunchy together, and you kind of get that perfect flavor, perfect heat. If you want to even call it heat, it's more of a, like I say, like kind of like a southwestern chipotle type seasoning more than it is spicy. Yeah, that's good stuff if you've never tried it. Let's see. Todd says slight lie on the catch part. So Xander just got a new phone from his cousin, from Todd's son, and Todd started sending Xander a bunch of pictures, and Todd's name on the phone is Fishless Todd. So there you go, Uncle Todd. You are officially known as Fishless Todd. Hey, so Hanson says he has all the spices, so get on him to send that stuff over. Brian says Todd's freezer says slight lie on the release part. Yeah, I know where he releases them. And that is into a big frying pan and then down the old toilet. Oh my goodness. Well, gentlemen, evening ladies and gents, I am going to call her quits for the evening, go say goodnight to the kiddos, and get ready for another day tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. If you have any questions or looking to get out, let me know. Shoot me a message and see what I can do to help you out. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch you on the water, and we'll see you guys next week. To all the moms out there, have a happy Mother's Day. And to the dads, single dads, happy Mother's Day, Dad's Day to you too. And make sure you're taking care of the moms out there this weekend. Have a good night, everybody.